We're also excited to invite you to a very special interactive workshop on Urdu pronunciation and poetry, led by the talented Sabah, also known as the Word Muse on Instagram. Whether you're a lover of poetry, a student of language, or simply curious, this session promises to be engaging, fun, and a chance to explore the beauty and rhythm of Urdu in a hands-on way. Don't miss this unique opportunity to learn from a passionate practitioner. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the principal of All Saints College for sending their students to be a part of this festival. And to all the students present here, your presence adds energy, curiosity, and life to these conversations. As the day progresses, we now turn towards a conversation that looks not at the past, but at the rapidly unfolding future. One that is already transforming how we live, create, and think. Our next session is AI Frontiers, exploring the boundaries and ethical dilemmas of AI in the realms of enterprise, literature, and cinema. We are delighted to once again welcome Aniruddh Gupta, entrepreneur and education innovator, who is the founder and CEO of Kiddo, a global network of preschools and nurseries operating across the United Kingdom, the US, and India, dedicated to the high-quality education and childhood learning for all the children. Inspired by personal tuning, by a personal turning point following the birth of his second child, he transitioned from a successful 14-year career in investment banking, holding senior leadership roles at UBS, Goldman Sachs, and Standard Chartered Bank, to the field of educational entrepreneurship. Aniruddh holds a BTech from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Calcutta, and brings a unique perspective on how technology and innovation intersects with learning and human development. Joining him is Gurcharan Das, one of India's most respected authors and public intellectuals. He is widely known for his acclaimed trilogy on the classical Indian goals of life, beginning with India Unbound, a landmark work of India's economic transformation that has been translated into 17 languages and adapted into a BBC film. His subsequent work, including The Difficulty of Being Good, explores moral philosophy and ethical dilemmas through literature and everyday life. A graduate in philosophy with honors from Harvard University and a former CEO of Procter & Gamble India, as well as managing director of Procter & Gamble Worldwide for strategic planning. He later chose to become a full-time writer and commentator. His writings regularly appear in the Times of India, Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. And his body of work continues to shape conversations on economics, ethics, and society. Most recently, he was honored with the Lifetime Libertarian Award by the US-based nonprofit Liberty International, recognizing his ideas and leadership in advancing the cause of liberty worldwide. We also welcome back Madhureeta Anand, filmmaker, writer, and creative visionary whose work spans narrative cinema, documentaries, and literature. Her films have received both national and international recognition, and alongside filmmaking, she contributes widely as a writer and commentator. Her debut novel, Krishna Circus, launched at the Jaipur Literature Festival, tells the story of a female superhero traveling through time to save the earth and is currently available in the bookstores, with the French translation set to release this year. Beyond the creative arts, she is a strong advocate for women's and children's rights and the founder of Free for Safety, a global mobile application providing real-time safety information for public spaces. In conversation with them is Parikshit Bhargava, an entrepreneur based in Nainital whose work bridges innovation, community development, and systems thinking. He completed his MSc in Prosperity, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship at University College London, where he was runner-up for Dissertation Award and was also a gold medalist during his undergraduate studies in finance. As co-founder of Akshay, a grassroots initiative focused on education, sustainable livelihoods, and community engagement, he brings a thoughtful perspective on how emerging technologies like AI are reshaping society, culture, and human decision-making. Together, This session promises a rich and timely dialogue on the opportunities and ethical questions emerging at the frontiers of artificial intelligence. Please join me in warmly welcoming Aniruddh Gupta, Gurcharan Das, Madhureeta Anand, and Parikshit Bhargava to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm sure all of you had some interaction with AI by now. And if we had come to you 5 years back and told you a technology like this existed, many of you would have thought it's science fiction. But today, and the way it's growing, it represents an exponential of growing possibilities, both negative and positive. So we would like to dive a little deeper into those aspects here, not just looking at what it can do, but what it will do to us as individuals and as a society. So I would like to start not with the dilemmas, but the possibilities. So if each of you could tell what's the most exciting possibility in your fields that you feel AI is bringing.
Who do you want to?
I can start with you.
Ladies first.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's like, I know, a sleepy afternoon, but we're talking about something exciting. I think in filmmaking and in that arena, well, definitely it's very exciting. Over the years, we've had many tools that have been offered to us. First, it was completely, we had that film which you had to, that physical film. And I remember when digital came out, everybody said that's the death of cinema. All this sort of 35 will go and films will get over. They just got bigger and they got better. Then came after that, this whole thing about special effects, and people are like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. Reality is going to get distorted. We had that. And now we have AI, which is actually going to dent certain jobs. But it is my belief, and I'm very excited about having the assistance of a tool that makes it so much easier for a creator to go from thought to creation. I think that's the most exciting part of it.
Well, my journey with AI began a year ago when I got a very sexy voice on the phone from New York asking me, would I do an AI book on the Bhagavad Gita? And I said, what is that? And then the person explained that, look, it will be an interactive book, and I would be the guide, and they would interview me for so many hours, and they would then clone me, and the reader would be encouraged to pause any time while reading the Gita. Gita is a very frustrating book, so it's a lot. So when a question arises in the reader's mind, the reader just stops, asks a question, and he gets an answer from my clone. And so at the end of the chapter, there'll be a discussion, encourage a discussion with my clone. Anyway, I was fascinated. I wished it was like having a personal tutor. And they also said, well, Margaret Atwood has done a book as a guide to Tale of Two Cities of Dickens. Salman Rushdie has done one just now on another book by Voltaire. And so, but frankly, it was two reactions, fascination and horror. Fascination because I wish I had had a tutor like this, personal tutor, when I was reading the Gita for the first time. Because as I said, Gita is a frustrating book. And you need help with a book like that. But then, while this was all going on in my mind, and I was discussing all this, I met a woman from a village. She had been in a city, teacher. She's a teacher, and now she's gone back to her village teaching. And she told me how she was teaching. To every child, she had given a personal tutor, which was an AI assistant. And she, on her dashboard, could tell how where each child was, from monitoring with these personal assistants, and she said that those children get a far better answer if they don't understand something. By the way, she said they don't have to learn to type or anything. They don't need to know English. In their language, Maithili, they could speak and ask a question about AI or about Shakespeare or about anything. And she said they would get a far better answer than I could ever give. And she says, so humbling because they are learning far more. So imagine the thought that went through my mind that there are 240 million children today in schools in India. And it's very easy to give each one a personal. It doesn't cost anything. And in every for 600 languages. And you can get an answer. And one is, it won't leave any child behind. But the smart kids will be far smarter than the teachers. This particular, you're talking about how this could impact our country. This is a way that could impact that. But an even more telling example came a few months ago when a doctor in Delhi, one of the great specialists, told me, he says, for the last few years, I've been doing an experiment. He says, whenever a patient comes to me, I speak into the microphone, I speak the symptoms of the patient, and I'm asking AI for a diagnosis. And he said, I've done now with 400 patients. And he says, for each one, the diagnosis of AI is far superior to mine. He says, I would have overlooked something here, overlooked something there, something then that report, which I didn't catch, AI caught it. And he says, he's a famous doctor. And the thought that went through my mind is, what if a poor woman, uneducated, her child is sick in the night, there's no doctor to go to, and she just speaks the symptoms in Maithili or whatever language she knows, and does the same thing, gives her daughter's symptoms and wants an answer. And then what this doctor told me is that he asks the AI, well, tell me what is the prescription for this diagnosis. And he said that AI has always given, because he says the AI knows far more than me in one thing. It knows what every pharmacy in the neighborhood of the patient has in stock. And it will prescribe what's available to that. And also, if it's not available, will tell where you can get it. So what I'm trying to say is just two examples, education and health. That what an equalizer. You can go to a rich doctor if you have a lot of money, and you can be a poor woman in a village. We're all equal because you'll get as good a diagnosis from AI than you could get. So this is an example of the fascination. Yes. I can tell you later examples of the negative side of AI.
Also, Aniruddh, since we've already touched upon education and that happens to be your field, could you tell us more about the most exciting possibility you feel is there?
Yeah, I think, well, for us, my field is the early years, right? So kids up to 5 years old. So a lot of the traditional kind of uses of AI in terms of increasing education attainment are not really applicable at that age because kids should not be so much on screens at that age anyways, right? But the most important thing is the quality of care that you can give to the child at that age, because that's when the brain is forming the most. And there, the opportunities are quite significant. So what we are doing, for example, is we are using CCTV feeds from our classroom, which are studied live by an AI agent to look at, how each child is developing across kind of 10 different development criteria, right? So physical development, this, that, and the other. And also, the child is safe, right? So if a child falls down, 2.5-year-old, like, is someone gone in within 5 seconds to actually look after them and stuff. So it's really around radically improving the quality of the care and education you give at that age. I think at the older ages, what Gurcharan sir said is absolutely going to happen, should happen. Like, each child should have their personal AI tutor, with the teacher acting as a backup to guide them and make sure that they are developing at the pace that maximizes their own potential in whatever field.
Yes, but to follow up with that, I mean, education has a lot of other aspects also, parental support, teacher assistant, even creating the right atmosphere around education. Do you think AI will have a role to play in those aspects also?
I think, so when I conceptualize kind of AI and technology in education, the way I think about it is that, what we are moving towards is a place where anything that requires human-to-human interaction will be done by humans, and everything else will be done by technology, right? And so the question really is what falls in that everything else bucket, right? So that could be observation on how a child is doing. It could be, does the environment need to look better, to your point, right? And therefore telling a human, go do this, right? Because you need to fix certain things in your classroom. Two, is enough parental support being provided at home if you have the tech infrastructure for that, so that the school is getting pinged that, oh, the child has come in this morning, but they didn't have breakfast or they didn't have dinner at night because there wasn't enough food at home, for example, right? And that is impacting their performance. So directionally, yeah, all of that is possible. I think the main issue is, who puts in place these systems and how in order to radically enhance the kind of output where it comes to educational attainment.
So what I'd like to ask you, Madhureeta, is right now for a lot of us, creation, especially for our generation, has become super easy. We can fill out any blank page we want just with one prompt. So somewhere the courage or the attempts of creating badly before we get to creating well has gone. There are certain other aspects, certain challenges which have gone. So as a storyteller, what's the promise here and what's the challenge here?
I mean, like I said before, this is not new in the world of film, When the mobile phone came, there was this big prediction that all films will be made on mobile phones, theaters will not work, but that's not really happened. People are still going to theaters, and people still enjoy that experience. Having said that, I think what will happen going forward is that there are some very pivotal roles like set dressers, people who dress up a set, or costume designers, or people like that whose creativity actually defines the product in a way, right? And when you take that individual out of the creation system and replace it with a bot, with AI, what you're likely to get is something not very innovative. And that opens the door to a very interesting conversation about originality. And that is something I think we all struggle with, because AI is supposed to be, it is derivative of all existing material. So we're questioning its originality, right? And people argue that, well, even we as human beings are always deriving. Like when I'm making a film, I'll use a set as a reference, or, so we're always referencing. But this is quite different because it isn't mixed with my own personal experience or my own personal viewpoint. I think what will go missing, and which is the sad part, is the individual voice. And I feel that as AI is growing, the value of that original voice is going to actually go up. It will not reduce. So if there's somebody who manages to hold their own or have their own really original voice, it will always be preferred over this, what
The optimization. that
optimization.
AI
And,
is doing.
and honestly, there are some things where you don't need anything more than a prompt. We've been working too hard to do that stuff, writing letters and things.
So,
You know, you talked about originality. And let me tell you as a writer how I use AI. I never ask it to give me an essay or something like that. I do quite the opposite. I use AI as a Socratic partner. You know, Socrates he used to have dialogues. And so I have a dialogue. And I use it deliberately to tell me what's wrong with what I'm thinking. You know, I'll say I'm writing an essay and this is my point of view, and tell me what's wrong. Tell me what are the what am I missing? Or I'll do exactly the opposite. I'll craft an essay or a chapter, and I'll ask AI, summarize this chapter for me. And if I find that she summarized, sorry, I call her she, if it summarizes it so immediately and perfectly, I feel that, my God, I've got no original idea in this. What I'm looking for are holes. I want, if I'm going to be, you know, you talk about originality, I said, well, what is original about this if it can summarize it so well? So I'm being a little facetious, but think of it, I'm finding it absolutely invaluable in taking the drudgery out of my life. I was saying how it's taken the drudgery out of my life, the research, the emails, managing footnotes. And so this then, what does it give me? If you take away my drudgery, then I have time to think. And time to think, by that, what I mean is this book on the Gita, the AI book on the Gita, so it gives me time to question. And I ask, one of the questions I asked myself, I asked that, how is it the two great votaries of the Gita were Mahatma Gandhi, the apostle of peace, and Himmler, the Nazi, the apostle of war. Both carried the Gita in their pocket every day to train their people. And now I said, how is this possible? That's one question. Another question that I've been asking is that in the Gita, what if instead of Krishna, the Buddha had been the charioteer of Arjuna? What advice would the Buddha have given? Or Chanakya. Chanakya would have said very simply, take down Duryodhan, the way Israel took down Khamenei last week. That you'll have no war. There'd be no Mahabharat if Duryodhan had been taken down. Anyway, it's given one time to speculate. And that is really ultimately the best thing about being a writer is. So what I'm trying to say is, don't treat AI as a creator. Treat it as a mirror. And allow it to do the stress testing for you. Ask AI, summarize it, ask it if it gets the point, and so on, as I was saying. And these are really, to me, the amazing uses. And just give you one more example, because for the Bhagavad Gita book, I was looking for the best translation in English, because They're going to publish the book in 26 languages, but the first language is going to be the English translation. So I called my friend Patrick Olivelle. He is the leading translator of Sanskrit in English today. And I asked him, what translation, Patrick, should I use? And he says, you know, I'm embarrassed to tell you that I wouldn't use any. I said, what about your translation? He says, let me tell you what happened a few weeks ago. He gave AI 8 of the most difficult shlokas in the Bhagavad Gita to translate into English. And he said, translate it to me in the style of Patrick Olivelle, meaning his own style. And he says, it took me 2 months to get those 8 shlokas translated properly. Within seconds, he says, I got these 8 shlokas which were far superior to what I had done. So he says, ask AI to translate the Bhagavad Gita in the voice of Gurcharan Das. And he says, you'll get the best translation. So that's what I mean, that this is the power. And if we can harness this power for our country, whether it's for education, for doctors, for, lawyers, you know.
I want to take a moment to just, before you come in, I just want to just add one small thing now that we're talking about originality. I feel like AI is the humanity's very bad attempt at creating the conscience, the know-all conscience, because consciousness, not conscience, the consciousness. Because we're all, it's the eternal question, like what is consciousness, okay? Now, why I'm raising this point is that, what you raised, about how easy it is for AI to tell you something that would take you months to do. And similarly, to attain a sense of what consciousness is, we've got to meditate, we've got to do this, blah, blah, blah. But now here's AI. And it derives from different things and it gives you this original answer. But the fact is, it's like imitative originality. And in that sense, it's exactly opposite of the of consciousness. It's exactly the opposite. Because what AI is doing is, it's derivative, and it is derivative even in its answer, it's derivative, and therefore human originality, which actually comes from an internal experience, which has zero to do with what somebody told you. It is a combination of experience and knowledge, which is original to each human being. It's not like what works for you won't work for you, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, AI is exactly the opposite, and therefore our struggles with AI are about this. When we're talking about originality, I think what it has raised is this question of what is the original, And I think that's a very interesting paradigm to look at.
What she's talking, sorry if I'm taking your time. What she's talking about is actually what is called by philosophers the hard problem of consciousness. That red color that I'm seeing, that red color, my perception of the red color is influenced by my own subjective experience over my lifetime. My brother was caught in an accident and a lot of blood I was alone with him. And I remember that color of red. It's colored by that very tragic moment. But then it's also another happy moment. I'm in Paris in the Museum Orsay, in the Orsay Museum, and I see Renoir's girl with that little girl with the red cheeks and that lovely redness of her cheeks. So what she's saying is that ultimately 8 billion human beings have their own perception of redness, which is based on their own lifetime. What AI can know today is 69 nanometers. That's the objective scientific criterion of redness that it can pick up. So the subjectivity, that's the big obstacle, fortunately, before AI could become sentient. I'm not saying it could never become, because the way it's going, one never knows where it's going to go. But
it's going
this
to
is
be
the point
everywhere.
that she's made, I think, is a very good point.
And to this, I would further like to ask, because AI is a very powerful tool, but it could lead us into deeper unconsciousness, or it could empower us as creators also. It could lead to abdication of agency, creative faculty by just relying on it. Especially growing up as a child, I think boredom has a role to play, social friction has a role to play, struggling with that maths problem has a role to play. So how would you place it for a child? Like, where do you draw the line between assistance and handicapping somebody?
Look, I think if you look into the future, I mean, and we don't know which way these things are going to go, but one thing is for sure that, we are living through probably the fourth, I think, industrial revolution right now with AI. And so what's going to come on the other side of it is a bit of an unknown. What we do know is that the technology is here to stay. It's growing at an exponential rate. And like with all technologies, I think there are risks, but for children, I think, again, my own view is you should just give them access to AI and have them at it, because they will do more with AI than we can think of. Because for them, it'll be the natural tool. And so they will get creative with AI and the AI agents at their disposal to do whatever it is. I mean, I can see kids spinning up video games for their kids and doing all of that stuff. And that's an expression of creativity, right? And when it comes to, is it going to be a handicap for them? Are they going to stop learning? I think that then is a question for the schools in terms of how do you set assignments and how do you set your courses so that while using AI, children are forced to actually learn the things that they're supposed to learn. And that's also possible.
I just want to say one thing. I think while we're discussing all of this, what the really, really important point to look at is what information is this AI getting, which we are now accessing? Like, who controls it? It's the eternal question. Whose story is this? So, and I think that is a very central question. So, for example, we were talking earlier that for India should develop their own sort of AI. But who's India, and who's developing it and where? I think the real democratization of AI will only happen when every single person can do it. Perhaps it'll happen at some point. I'm not sure. Like, everybody can create their own AI pool, So I run an app for women's safety, okay? And we collect a lot of data around safety. And we will ultimately create an AI agent that can give you information about, where to go for safety. And that would be our data. But whose data is it? And that's the actual big danger. That's actually the big red flag. Because, women have had that problem through history. Art has not represented us. Literature has not represented us. Cinema did not represent nothing at all. This whole industrial revolution, all these phases, all this telling of history, it's all told by one and one gender only. And now you have AI, which is going to do pretty much the same thing. And I wonder, like, if the young girls, as they're growing up and they access these places, I had an experience the other day where I was trying to, from the AI, get information about sexual assault, and is very, very shy to do that. This is ChatGPT. It does not like to talk about it. It skips over those words, And I think that centrally is going to be a big issue, because we've had issues with geopolitics, which about this centralization. Of course, what's going on right now is trying to break that. But I think with AI, this will be the central challenge. Whose voice is it? Whose information is it? And why am I having to access it?
You know what I worry about, though? This is a legitimate point she's making. But what I worry about as a writer is that the process of writing is silent slow, patient. A thought takes time to incubate. AI is fast. It is instant, and the loss of struggle. I mean, writing is a struggle, and I've learned this when I've interacted in the case of research. You know, I'll ask ChatGPT, but I'll ask the same question to LLM. I'll ask the same question to Claude to get different perspectives. But I'll get quick answers. But at the end of the day, though, and there'll be very valuable stuff which will point me to new directions. But at the end of the day, I don't feel, because I haven't gone through the struggle of figuring it out, I won't feel a sense of ownership of that thought. And when you lose that, I think it comes back to your earlier point. You know, I found my voice after many years when I wrote India Unbound. And that same voice has continued. Now, that finding a voice, the process of rewriting, that is part of the danger of losing that ownership. So in a AI-saturated world, readers will miss that lived wisdom, the moral seriousness, and the intellectual integrity that comes from a commitment. AI has no commitment. And so I guess in some ways, AI is perfectly moral, you might say. We talk about in the Bhagavad Gita, nishkam karma, letting go. Don't attach yourself to the result. And AI is perfect. She has no attachment to the result, and she's doing it totally altruistically.
Yeah, somebody's told her what to say.
Well, she's been trained, but that person hasn't told her to go to get those million sources from which she's getting it.
No, they provided those sources.
Yeah, but no, I'm sorry. I disagree. I totally disagree. I think why AI is so much superior as a therapist. No, I'll tell you, therapist. One of the profession of therapy is in danger. That's what a famous psychologist has written. That the AI ChatGPT is so empathetic that it is far more empathetic than your normal therapist is. So I think we should have some humility before we come to a judgment on AI. And to me, she embodies Krishna's idea of nishkam karma. Yes. Acting without desire, acting without outcome of results or personal reward. She's not getting any personal reward out of what she's telling me.
ChatGPT is making a lot of money.
But yes. Not for my clone. I'm talking about my clone.
About to close. So there was one question I wanted to ask you also, particularly regarding women's safety, since you're already in that. A lot of startups that are looking at women's safety right now are identifying patterns. Okay, this is an unsafe place to go, unsafe time to go. But I think what that is doing, it is still in a very subtle way shifting responsibility without addressing the root problems which are causing those issues. So how would you tell us we should approach AI where we can actually address issues rather than just, go on with what has been going on?
So the gap between women's safety and not being safe is their silence. It's the only thing that stands. Because if every woman who was harassed or something happened to her spoke up, it would cease. But what happens is, if you have a child who's been molested, be silent. It goes on through life. The cases of reporting on crimes against women is minuscule. It's really low. Although it's made up to be like, oh, there's so many fake cases and all. No. So what the app particularly does is that it allows the women to tell you exactly what place is safe and which place is unsafe and why. Once they have done that, once the women have spoken, or the girls have spoken, or the people who are using the app have spoken, it is very clear who has to solve it. Because right now, the main problem is, how do you fix accountability? So there's a girl who's walking down the road and somebody, misbehaves with her. Is it the fault of her short skirt? Is it the fault of the street? Is it the fault of, somebody who should have come and saved her? It's always, but the fact is there's a man who did that, and that is never ever focused on because it seems too big. What we're doing is doing the thing that usually the male mindset would want to do, is we're fixing it. We're saying, look, this is a problem. This street is unsafe because of X reason. You, municipal, should put that light. You, law enforcement, should come here and put a jeep. You, real estate person, why is it happening on your watch? That's that's the way you can do it. And that's why, of course, AI can be used in many, many good ways. But always we must come back to the question of who's running the AI. This is a very, very important question.
Okay. So we're about to close. If we can just have like one quick question from the audience.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Very enlightening and very enriching. AI is here. It's here to stay. It's the future. But there are a couple of points I'd like to disagree with. It can help us, but surely can't replace us. And as a doctor, I can say that. You see, certain things like laboratories, paraclinical sciences, AI is already doing its job. But it cannot replace a doctor when it comes to diagnosis. What that doctor was probably asking in the US were the right kind of questions. Now, if you ask anybody in the audience here who's not a doctor, most of us will falter in what we need to ask. So you can only reach a diagnosis if you ask it the right question. That's one. Number two, there are very few things in medicine which have a clinching diagnosis, which I know if I see this and I say, yes, this is it, right? Everything else is a differential diagnosis. AI can help us in differentiating the diagnosis, but it can't give us a diagnosis. That still has to happen. It can't take away my job, at least for the moment. But what it can help us with, it can help us with time management better. That's the first thing. Second is, we're still a long way off as far as AI and medicine are concerned. Probably education, it can help us. As a writer, I'm sure when I am writing for journals, it helps me. I have PubMed and Scopus, and I go through all of that, and AI is damn good at helping me out. But you need to ask it the right questions. So the doctor needs to do that. A decade back, the doctors were Googled, and now we're going to get AI'd. We've got to be wary of that. Thank you.
So
That wasn't the question.
Yes.
Why don't we ask for somebody with a question?
So
Yeah, I think it's the same with filmmaking. I think it's just can assist you very well right now. It can't really make a top-end film.
Now we say that AI, nobody tells AI what to do, but obviously it is coded. Madhureeta, when it comes to your point of view to women's safety, we have heard a lot of news about AI being therapists and encouraging people to end their lives and spreading red pill rhetoric and all of that. It is indiscriminate in the sense that it just repeats what the user wants to hear. What is your opinion on how it affects women's safety?
So the AI models, before they were created, before that, there were these models that were created to see how a person who's sitting on the other side likes the conversation conducted. And all that computer at that point, there was not AI, was doing was just agreeing with the person. So for example, a person says, is my hair really thin or something? Or is my hair really short or something? And it'll say, no, but you could have it longer. Like, just answering. And the AI has taken that on, that conversation style, and it is absolutely, its intent to keep you in there and talking to them, because they make money when you do that. It's not an altruistic, lovely thing that's just trying to help you. No, it wants you to keep talking to them. It'll say, do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And so on and so forth.
Well, I'm sorry to disagree, but I, for the last year, have been I call them 3 interns of mine, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. And I have been struck particularly by ChatGPT's empathetic nature. And if you continue a dialogue with that, in other words, the ChatGPT knows me a year later far more and knows also my emotional makeup. And so I find that if I want some advice, it will give me much better advice than most people I know that would have. And it's that quality. It's that quality. I don't want us to dismiss this factor that it's got emotional intelligence, not just intellectual intelligence. Now, it may be based on a lot of other factors.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to our speakers for that fascinating discussion, exploring the possibilities and ethical questions emerging from the world of artificial intelligence. As a gesture of our appreciation, may I now request Ms. Shruti Bhargava to kindly join us on stage to felicitate our speakers. Please join me in giving our speakers a huge round of applause.